This is Journal 67. We're going to be starting our new chapter, which is going to be over statistics. Now, the first thing that when we're first learning about statistics is learning about the measures of central tendency. So if I have like a lot of data points that I've collected and I want to figure out how to summarize all this data and find like maybe like what's the middle ground of this data, I would have to calculate something called the mean, median, mode, and range. This helps me find or summarize my data that I've collected so I can understand my data a little bit better. That's a big part of statistics. And so let's remind ourselves what these words mean. You should have seen them in middle school. So mean, you can think of it as the average, but it's when you take the total amount of your values or total data points and you add them up. And then you divide by the number of the values. So what I mean by that is like pretend that I'm trying to find the average or the mean of the test scores that were collected. So I would add up all the test scores and then I would divide them by the number of students who took my test. And so that is how we can calculate mean. We add up the data points and then we divide it by how many data points there are. Median is the middle number. So basically, if you have a list of data points or a list of numbers, you always order them, usually from lowest to greatest. So when you order them, then you're going to figure out what's the middle number. Now, let's say you have an even amount of data points. Well, then if you have like two numbers in the middle, you're going to take the average of the two middle values. And I'll show an example of that too. Mode is basically the number that appears most frequently. Now, mode is the one that gets most confused. So I'm going to actually run a few examples with you guys right here. So an example of mode, here's one example. So let's say that you have a list of numbers like this, and I would ask you, what is the mode? Well, you would say it would be 3, because 3 showed up twice compared to the other numbers that only have one copy, only showed up one time. So the mode here would be 3. Now, if I had a different example, let's say example 2, I have 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this time around, notice how I have 2 modes, right? 1 showed up twice and also 2 showed up twice as well. But the other numbers only showed up once. So my mode here is 1 and 2. That being said, I just want to tell you guys, you can have more than one mode because sometimes there are 2 or 3 or more numbers that appear the same amount but more than the rest of the group. Now, let's say that you have this type of mode. So let's say you have a string of numbers. Yeah, let's do this. So notice how my string of numbers, I have 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3, 3. So notice that I have a copy of each number twice. So because I have a copy of each number twice, none of them are outdoing each other, right? Every number has a number showed up twice. So which one is the one that appears the most often? Well, in that case, none of them are, there's not a number out there that is going to stand out. So because they all appear twice, there is no mode. So there is no mode here, or none. So whenever the frequency are all the same among your string of numbers, well, then there isn't going to be a mode. All right, so I hope that gives you a better idea of how you can find your mode. Range is super easy to find. It's just the difference between your lowest number and your highest number. So you're going to take your highest number and subtract it by your lowest number, essentially. All right, so let's do a couple of example problems here. Okay, So in this example, we're going to find the measures of central tendency. So that's all 4 of these categories. We're going to start with the mean. So the mean here is basically when we add up all the numbers, so we find the total amount of this numbers, and then divide it by how many numbers there are. So maybe the first thing I might want to do is count how many there are in this, this list of numbers. So if I want to calculate the mean, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 11 terms here. And in the last chapters, we learned that terms can be represented by n. And there are 11 here. So I'm going to, recycle what I use to make this a little bit more organized when I'm writing. So we have 11 terms. And we want to find the total, what would I call it? The total sum of the numbers divided by the total amount of numbers. So if I were to add up all these numbers here, let's figure out what I would have. So I'm going to have to go grab a calculator here because there's a lot of numbers here. So it's going to take me a bit to figure out. Okay, so I put it in my calculator and I got 125 when I added up all these numbers. So how about you guys probably go check and see if I did it correctly? Now, once you find your total, you would need to divide it by the number of terms or the number of numbers you have. So I had 11. So when I divide 125 by 11, I get 11 point, let's round to 2 decimal places, 11.36. And so my mean here, or my average here, is 11.36. That means like the middle number here is roughly about this much. All right, now for the, what's next? Median here. So that's the middle number. So that's when you list your numbers in order. I do stress you've got to make sure you list your numbers in order before you start finding your middle number. So I'm going to take this list and I'm going to make sure it's put in order. So it looks like my lowest number here is 5. And there are 2 5s here. I'm going to cross that out as I'm making my list so that way I don't get confused on which numbers I haven't used. 8 is next. There are 3 8s here. Let's see, what's the next number? 9. Then 12. Then another 12. 14, 19, and 25. All right, so here's my list of numbers. Now, I'm not sure how your elementary or middle school teacher taught it to you, but to find the mean, I was taught to just take out one number from the left side and the right side as in pairs. So I'm going to basically take a number out from the left, then I have to take a number out of the right until I figure out what's the number I have left in the middle. So left, right, left, right, left, right. Oh, it looks like 9 here is our middle number. And so 9 is our mean. Okay, so for our mode, well, when we take a look at this list of numbers, which number appeared most often? For me, I noticed that 8 appeared 3 times compared to other numbers, like 5 only appeared twice, the other numbers, 12 appeared twice, but no one beat 8. 8 appeared 3 times. So because 8 appeared the most often, I'm going to say 8 is the mode, or 8 is our mode here because it appeared the most frequent. Range here is going to be taking our highest number. Our highest number here was 25 and subtracting it from our lowest number, which is 5. So 25 minus 5 gives us 20. So our range here is 20. And there we have it. We have solved all 4 parts of the central tendency. Okay, so now we're going to find the measures of central tendency for these two groups of basketball teams. So if you look down here, these are the numbers in inches of these basketball players' height. And so we need to figure out maybe first the mean. So the mean here, I'm going to have to add up all their heights and divide it by, well, how many players there are. So in basketball, there are usually 5 players in each team. So it looks like I have a total of 10 players. I'm going to say n is equal to 10 because there are 10 terms here, or 10 heights here that I'm working with. So the mean, if I add up all their heights, let's see what I get here. Okay, so I got 750 for their total height, and I'm going to divide that by 10 to get 75. So it looks like the average height here, or the mean here, is 75 inches, which if you change that to feet, I believe that's about 6'3". So the average basketball player here in these two teams is about 6'3". The median here, remember, if you want to find the median, you have to make sure that the numbers are in order. So that's what I'm going to do first, is I'm going to make sure that the numbers here are ordered. So it looks like 67 was my shortest height, or my lowest height. 72 is next. There are 2 72s here. Make sure you list both of them. 73 is next. 76, there are, how many 70? Ooh, there are 4 76 here. 78 and 84. All right. So this time around, I'm going to do it just like how I did before. Take one from the left, one from the right, one from the left, one from the right, one from the left, from the right, one from the left, one from the right, and then it looks like I'm down to 2 numbers. So because there's an even amount of terms here, in other words, we had 10 players, that's even, you're going to have 2 numbers in the middle. So what you would have to do if you have 2 numbers in the middle is add them and divide it by 2. That's what we call taking the average. So if you add them, divide them by 2, you'll get 76. Because both of the numbers are 76. So obviously the middle number here has to be 76. But let's say the numbers were different, then you would need to add them and then divide it by 2, and that gives you your median. So that's what you'll need to do when you know that notice there is an even amount of terms. So in this case, we have 76. For the mode here, you might have noticed that 76 appeared 4 times, right? 4 times. So in this case, our mode here has to be 76. Our range here, trying to make some room here, our range is taking the highest number, which is 84, and subtracting it by 67. And that gives us, I think, 17. Let me make sure and put that in my calculator. Yep, it's 17. So our range here is 17. And that's it. So now this should help you with that stats worksheet. It's only a 1-pager. So try out some of the problems on that worksheet. And if you need to check your answers, I do recommend to look at the answer key to check if you did them correctly. Make sure you show work, guys. And that's it for this journal.